He only stopped for a cup of black coffee, but within minutes a local deputy had a gun in his face. Quentin Dre didn't look like trouble, clean suit, quiet eyes, a government SUV parked by the pumps. But to one cop, that was all the proof he needed. He demanded keys, mocked his answers, and laughed when Quentin calmly said he was with the United States Secret Service. Seconds later, the officer yanked open a federal vehicle, drew his weapon, and sneered at a badge he swore was fake. What happened next turned a simple coffee run into a viral moment that left the officer in handcuffs. Stay tuned till the end, you won't believe how fast this officer's power trip collapsed. The Chevron station on East Blackstock Road was quiet that Tuesday morning. Cars came and went in a steady rhythm, people half awake, clutching coffee cups and fiddling with radios as they rushed to work. Quentin Dre wasn't trying to draw attention. He moved with the calm assurance of a man who had spent most of his life blending into crowds, staying alert without looking tense. A tall, broad-shouldered man in his 40s, he wore a charcoal suit, white shirt, no tie. The only giveaway that he wasn't just another businessman was the discreet earpiece in his right ear, and the gleam of silver hidden inside his jacket, a badge that could open doors most people didn't even know existed. He had just walked out of the convenience store with a steaming cup of black coffee in his hand when the mood shifted. A sheriff's cruiser jerked into the lot, tires crunching hard against the gravel. The vehicle swung sharp, cutting across 2 parking spaces before sliding halfway into the lines. The driver's door slammed. Deputy Ray Denslow stepped out, buzz cut, mirrored aviators, chest puffed like he owned the ground he walked on. Even though the sky was still overcast, he wore those sunglasses, the kind of cop who never missed a chance to project authority. His eyes went straight to the black SUV with government plates and then to the man holding coffee beside it. "You with that vehicle?" Denslow barked, closing the distance quickly. His right hand rested casually, but not too casually, on the strap of his holster. Quentin turned his head, calm, almost casual. "Yes, sir." "Keys," Denslow snapped. "Registration." "ID right now." Quentin set his coffee on the roof of the SUV, straightened slightly, and kept his voice even. "Deputy, I'm on official duty. I can identify myself." "I didn't ask for your job title," Denslow interrupted, his voice rising. "I asked for your name." "Don't stall me." There were only a handful of people in the lot, but already a man near the car wash had slowed his steps, phone in hand. Another customer froze by the ice machine, watching. Quentin kept his eyes steady on the deputy. "My name is Deputy Chief Quentin Dre. United States Secret Service." The words landed like a spark in gasoline. Instead of diffusing the moment, they seemed to ignite something sharper in Denslow. His mouth twisted into a smirk. "Secret Service?" he scoffed. "Yeah, right. Everybody's got a story. That's a nice suit, I'll give you that. Looks real official. Probably your cousin's car, huh? Or you lift the badge off someone else?" Quentin didn't blink. His breathing stayed slow, practiced. "I can reach for my credentials. They're in my jacket. Left side." Slowly. Denslow snorted, shaking his head. "You think I haven't seen fake badges before? Seen plenty of jokers try that routine." He took 2 aggressive steps closer, his hand sliding fully over his holster. His shadow cut across Quentin's shoes. "Hands where I can see them," Denslow snapped. A woman at pump 2 gasped loud enough for others to turn. Her hand flew to her mouth. A kid by the snack machine raised his phone higher. Quentin lowered himself carefully to one knee, then both. He placed the coffee cup gently on the ground and laced his fingers behind his head, every movement deliberate, every word calm. "I am not a threat. My badge is in my inside pocket. I will not move unless instructed." But calmness didn't cool Denslow. It only seemed to feed his ego. He let out a sharp laugh, almost mocking. "Man thinks he's in a movie," he muttered, circling Quentin like a predator testing its prey. The deputy's voice carried across the parking lot now, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You think wearing a suit makes you special? You think saying Secret Service scares me? I don't buy it. Not for a second. His fingers drummed against the grip of his gun. His jaw worked tight under the sunglasses. Around them, the lot was no longer just another Tuesday morning. It was a stage. A dozen quiet witnesses had turned into an audience. Phones tilted toward them, recording, capturing every second. And still, Quentin Dre didn't flinch. Kneeling on the asphalt, hands interlaced behind his head, he simply repeated the same truth: my credentials are in my pocket. I will not resist. For the first time, doubt flickered across the crowd, not in Quentin, but in the man standing over him with the gun. The air in the Chevron lot felt heavy, like a storm building with no rain yet falling. Deputy Ray Denslow's voice had already drawn a circle of silence around the two men, Quentin Dre kneeling calmly on the ground, and the deputy standing over him with one hand grazing his holster. The sound of pumps clicking off, car doors slamming, and murmurs of customers faded into the background. Now, all anyone could hear was the low rasp of the deputy's breathing and the occasional barked command. Quentin's calm composure seemed to irritate Denslow even more. Every polite word, every slow breath was like sandpaper against the deputy's temper. Finally, Denslow spat on the pavement beside Quentin and shifted his focus to the gleaming black SUV. "This your car, huh?" he sneered, circling past Quentin like a wolf testing the perimeter of its prey. "Government plates. You really expect me to believe that?" Quentin didn't move an inch. "That vehicle is official. You do not have authorization to search it." Denslow barked a laugh, sharp and hollow. "Authorization? Son, you're on my lot, in my county. I don't need your permission." And before Quentin could respond, the deputy reached for the handle. The sound of the SUV door unlocking and swinging open cracked through the lot like a gunshot. Gasps rippled from the bystanders. Phones that had been filming casually now zoomed in, fingers tightening on screens, recording every second. Inside the SUV, a black leather case sat visible on the passenger seat. It was standard-issue federal equipment, clean and professional. Denslow's eyes darted over it before landing on the folder clipped inside the visor, federal insignia glinting under the weak morning light. He yanked it out with an exaggerated gesture, as though pulling proof of a crime. Holding it up, he sneered, "This it? This your magic pass? A shiny piece of metal that says you're above the law?" The badge caught the sunlight, its gold and blue seal undeniable, its details precise and impossible to fake. A murmur spread through the small crowd. One woman whispered loudly, "That's real. My cousin works in D.C., I've seen one before." But Denslow wasn't listening. His jaw locked. His pride was on the line now, and pride is a dangerous thing to mix with authority. He tossed the credentials onto the hood carelessly, letting them slide against the windshield. "Fake," he declared flatly, voice carrying more for the audience than for Quentin. "I've seen better knockoffs at a pawn shop." That was when he did it. His hand slipped fully onto the grip of his pistol, thumb flicking the strap loose. In one motion, he drew the gun. The metallic scrape of the weapon clearing the holster cut through the parking lot like ice water. "Hands higher," he barked, aiming squarely at Quentin's chest, though Quentin was already kneeling with his fingers interlaced above his head. A collective gasp shot through the bystanders. Someone shouted, "Whoa! He's unarmed." Another voice cried, "He showed you his badge. That's Secret Service, man." Phones lifted higher. A teenager climbed onto the hood of his mom's car just to get a better angle. Dozens of red recording dots glowed back at the deputy, everyone a witness, everyone a live feed waiting to explode online. Still, Quentin didn't move. His voice was even, steady, cutting through the rising panic. "Deputy, that firearm does not need to be drawn. I am a federal agent. If you discharge that weapon, you will be in violation of federal law." But Denslow's face was twisted into something beyond reason. The laugh he let out was short and ugly, a sound meant more to reassure himself than to intimidate anyone else. He waved the gun just slightly, pacing, the barrel catching glints of sunlight as he circled his kneeling suspect. You think your badge means anything here? He snarled. Not today. Not with me. The crowd pressed in closer, emboldened by numbers and cell phone screens. Someone yelled, "It's all on video, officer." Every second. Another voice added, "Put the gun down before you lose your badge." But if Denslow heard them, he didn't show it. His world had shrunk to one man kneeling in front of him and the gnawing realization that he had gone too far to turn back. And in that dangerous silence, with a gun pointed at the chest of a Secret Service deputy chief, the tension in the air was no longer just heavy, it was about to snap. The moment Deputy Ray Denslow leveled his gun at Quentin Dre's chest, the Chevron lot became more than just a gas station, it became a stage. Every bystander, every phone, every shaky voice shouting from the sidelines turned the confrontation into a live broadcast. The crowd wasn't just watching anymore, they were documenting, memorializing. And Denslow, sweating under his mirrored sunglasses, had no idea how quickly that spotlight was about to blind him. Quentin remained perfectly still, his hands still laced behind his head, his breathing steady like a man trained for far worse. He spoke again, voice calm, deliberate, each syllable carrying a weight of authority that no drawn gun could erase. "Deputy," he said, "your actions are being recorded. You are interfering with a federal officer in the execution of his duties. Lower your weapon now." But Denslow only tightened his grip. His laugh came out ragged, forced. "You think I'm scared of your play badge? You think anyone here's gonna back your story when I write the report?" That was when the deep growl of engines cut through the parking lot. Heads turned. Tires hummed against asphalt. From around the corner, two black Chevrolet Suburbans swept in, their windows tinted, their presence unmistakably official. They rolled in fast, coordinated, like sharks gliding into shallow water. The crowd erupted with shouts. "More feds," someone cried. Phones shifted angles, catching every frame as the SUVs braked hard, tires squealing just enough to add drama. Doors swung open in perfect sync, and out stepped men in suits, tall, composed, movements crisp. Their very posture carried weight. These weren't local deputies. These weren't bluffers. The lead agent, a broad-shouldered man in a dark blue tie, locked eyes on the scene in an instant. His hand went up, signaling both calm and authority. "Federal agents. Lower your weapon immediately." The command rang like thunder. Denslow flinched. His gun wavered, just slightly, but pride stiffened his arm again. "Stay back," he barked. "This man's impersonating. He's resisting." But the absurdity of the words cracked against reality. Here were half a dozen federal agents, badges flashing, weapons holstered but ready, eyes sharp as glass. They didn't move like men pretending. They moved like men who knew they didn't have to. The lead agent's voice sharpened, clipped, and commanding. "Deputy, the man kneeling before you is Deputy Chief Quentin Dre, United States Secret Service. He outranks me. He outranks all of us. Holster your weapon, now." The crowd gasped again, murmurs rippling like waves. The words deputy chief sliced through the tension. The story had just flipped, and everyone knew it. Phones zoomed in tighter. You could hear the rapid clicks of live-stream comments pinging through a teenager's speaker. Quentin didn't move. His voice, though low, carried far. "You are seconds away from violating federal statute, deputy. Put the gun away." Denslow's face flushed crimson beneath his aviators. His chest rose and fell, each breath sharper than the last. He looked from Quentin to the line of federal agents now fanning out across the lot, their stance solid, hands poised near their holsters but weapons still drawn only in posture, not steel. They weren't afraid. They were certain. And that certainty cracked something inside him. His hand trembled, not much, but enough for the crowd to notice. This doesn't mean," he stammered, lowering the barrel just a fraction. "Drop it," the lead agent barked again, his voice booming. "Now." It happened in one blur of motion. Two agents surged forward, faster than the crowd could process. One hand clamped down on Denslow's wrist, twisting the gun away safely, while another agent shoved him face first against the hood of his cruiser. The weapon clattered to the ground, sliding across the asphalt with a metallic scrape. The lot erupted. Cheers. Shouts. A dozen voices overlapping. Got him. It's all on video. He pulled on a Fed. Denslow thrashed, his voice cracking with panic. You don't have, I'm the law here. But the cuffs clicked tight around his wrists, the sound crisp and final. The same weapon he had drawn against an innocent man was now pressed useless against cold asphalt. His words dissolved into muffled protests drowned out by the roar of a triumphant crowd. And through it all, Quentin finally lowered his hands, rising smoothly to his feet. His suit was dusty, his palms scuffed from the asphalt, but his dignity was intact, unshaken. He straightened his jacket, looked at the deputy pinned against his own vehicle, and spoke in that same calm voice. No one is above the law. Not even you. The sound of metal cuffs snapping shut echoed across the Chevron lot like a judge's gavel. It wasn't just the end of one man's power trip, it was the beginning of a spectacle that no one present would ever forget. Deputy Ray Denslow squirmed against the hood of his own cruiser, red-faced, muttering half-formed protests that sounded more like excuses than authority. His aviators had been knocked loose in the scuffle, and now they dangled awkwardly from his collar, exposing his wide, frantic eyes. The man who only moments earlier had laughed at a Secret Service badge was suddenly smaller, diminished, his voice drowned out by the crowd. And the crowd was no longer silent. Cheers burst out first, sharp and raw. That's what you get, one man yelled, holding his phone high. A woman near the pump shouted, it's all on video. We've got everything. The once cautious bystanders surged closer, emboldened by the sight of the deputy's fall. Cell phones hovered above heads, their cameras glowing red, every angle covered. Quentin Dre stood tall at the center of it all, dusting the grit from his knees. His posture was calm, his breathing steady, but his eyes were sharper than ever, scanning the perimeter, ensuring no further threats lingered. His presence was unshaken, the epitome of composure under fire. For him, this wasn't victory. It was duty. But for the crowd, it was justice in real time. Put that online right now, a teenager shouted to his friend, waving toward the deputy pinned in cuffs. Already, streams of live video were shooting across platforms, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter. Comments rolled in faster than anyone could read. Cop just pulled a gun on a Secret Service agent. He laughed at the badge flushed face. This is crazy. Bro's career is done. Share this, the world needs to see. Within minutes, hashtags began forming. Hashtag Secret Service, hashtag Powertrip, hashtag Caught in 4K. A young woman's voice cracked with excitement as she spoke into her phone. We're live outside Spartanburg. This deputy just pulled a gun on a black man in a suit, mocked his Secret Service badge, and now he's the one in cuffs. Y'all, I can't make this up. Every cheer, every phone screen, every gasp turned the parking lot into a broadcast studio. And Denslow, still struggling against the hood, suddenly realized the true scope of his mistake. His words stumbled out, desperate, angry. You can't do this to me. I'm law enforcement. I'm in charge here. The lead federal agent, still gripping his shoulder, leaned close enough for the crowd to hear. His tone was low but firm, carrying the weight of authority. Not anymore. You crossed the line. You pointed a firearm at a deputy chief of the United States Secret Service. You're under federal detention. The crowd roared. Some clapped, others whistled, one man even shouted, "Enjoy unemployment, buddy." Denslow's voice cracked, a pathetic echo of his former bravado. It was a mistake. I didn't know. I thought. But the excuses only made the crowd laugh louder. There was no sympathy left for him. Not after the gun, not after the mockery, not after the arrogance. Two agents hauled him upright, his wrists clamped tightly behind him. His weapon, bagged as evidence, was secured by another agent. The Suburban's back door opened, a dark void waiting for the disgraced deputy. He was marched past the phones, past the jeers, every second preserved in pixels that would outlive his career. Quentin watched silently, his face unreadable. He didn't gloat, didn't smirk, didn't indulge the crowd's energy. Instead, he gave a single nod to the lead agent, then retrieved his credentials from the hood of the SUV, brushing the dust from the badge with deliberate care. That simple gesture, quiet, controlled, spoke louder than the shouts around him. And as the suburban doors shut behind Denslow, the moment crystallized. A simple coffee run had turned into a viral indictment of abuse, pride, and power. By nightfall, the video would flood national news. By morning, hashtags would trend worldwide. And by a week's end, one deputy's career would be reduced to a single phrase. The day he pulled a gun on the Secret Service and ended up in cuffs. The Chevron lot slowly returned to its ordinary rhythm, but the memory of what had just unfolded would not fade anytime soon. The crowd lingered, phones still buzzing with notifications, as if reluctant to leave the stage of a drama that had gripped them so completely. Quentin Dre, Deputy Chief of the United States Secret Service, stood quietly beside his SUV. The dust on his suit was a small reminder of what had nearly spiraled into tragedy. He adjusted his jacket, lifted the still warm cup of coffee from the asphalt, and finally took a slow sip. To anyone else, the act might have seemed mundane, but to those watching, it was a display of unshakable composure. "Are you okay, sir?" a woman asked softly, lowering her phone at last. Quentin nodded. "I'm fine. Thank you." There was no anger in his tone, no fire in his eyes. Only steadiness. It was the kind of calm that came from years of training, discipline, and the knowledge that moments like these defined not just reputations, but entire communities. Within the hour, local news vans rolled onto the scene, reporters scrambling to catch interviews with witnesses. Clips from the crowd's phones had already gone viral, racing across timelines, igniting debates, and sparking outrage. The headlines were brutal: Deputy pulls gun on Secret Service chief. Memes appeared, hashtags surged, and the face of Ray Denslow, once hidden behind mirrored aviators, became the emblem of arrogance undone by accountability. Later that evening, the Secret Service issued an official statement. Deputy Chief Quentin Dre displayed the highest professionalism during a dangerous and unnecessary escalation by a local law enforcement officer. The United States Secret Service does not take such threats lightly. An internal review is underway in coordination with federal and local authorities. The statement was measured, but the public had already rendered its own verdict. For many, the story was not about Quentin's badge, or even the Secret Service. It was about dignity in the face of humiliation, calm against chaos, truth against abuse of power. By the week's end, Deputy Denslow was suspended without pay, facing federal misconduct charges. His career, once a steady climb through the sheriff's office, was reduced to viral infamy. Quentin never sought the spotlight. He never posted a word about the incident. But his silence spoke volumes. The message was clear: respect cannot be demanded with a drawn gun. It must be earned through integrity. And so the moral settled into the public consciousness. Backhand index pointing right prejudice may provoke confrontation. Backhand index pointing right pride may pull the trigger. Backhand index pointing right but dignity, discipline, and truth will always have the last word. Because in the end, the man who mocked a badge was exposed, and the man who carried it with quiet honor walked away stronger.